Multiple reports suggest India is considering grounding the entire Boeing Dreamliner fleet after the lethal Air India plane crash in Ahmedabad. While an official decision is still awaited, the recovery of the black box from the crash site will clear many mysteries on what exactly led to the crash of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner within seconds after takeoff from Ahmedabad on its way to London. US and British investigators have arrived in India as the investigation focuses on loss of engine power as well as the airplane flaps and even the possibility of contaminated fuel in what is the worst aviation disaster in a decade. The shocking incident led to the deaths of 241 people on board and one miraculous survivor. This marks the first ever fatal crash involving the Boeing Dreamliner since its debut in 2011, even though Boeing itself had been facing heat over poor safety standards as well as battery issues which led to two Dreamliners catching fire in 2013, which were owned by Japanese airlines. But what caused the Air India crash? Was it engine failure, pilot error, or something far more sinister? In addition to those on board, people on the ground were also killed when the plane crashed into the BJ Medical College and Hospital hostel, with total fatalities now crossing the 290 mark. Among the 242 people on board, 169 were Indians, 53 were British citizens, 1 Canadian, and 7 Portuguese, according to Air India. US President Donald Trump extended condolences and support to the Indian government, calling the incident terrible and stating that the United States of America stands ready to assist India.
Well, it didn't look like there was an explosion. It just looked like the engines maybe lost power. But
speaking at the event in the White House on the 12th of June, Trump expressed, quote, "We saw the plane. It looked like it was flying pretty well. It didn't look like there was an explosion. Just looked like the engines maybe lost power," unquote. Reaffirming support for India, Trump additionally stated, "It's a big country, a strong country, and they'll handle it, I'm sure. But I let them know that anything we can do, we will be over there immediately," unquote. Donald Trump's statement coincided with the decision of the US government to send a delegation of American investigators to India, given that the jet was US manufactured. The National Transportation Safety Board confirmed in a post on X that it will be leading a team of US investigators traveling to India to assist the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, while the FAA, or the Federal Aviation Administration, is providing technical assistance to the NTSB. Meanwhile, Boeing put out a brief statement after the deadly crash saying that it is in continuous contact with Air India and are ready to support them. A wave of global condolences from world leaders have poured in, where they express grief over the tragedy and solidarity with the people of India. Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, was one of the first global leaders to react to the tragedy, which he labelled as devastating. Starmer wrote on platform X, quote, "I am being kept updated as the situation develops, and my thoughts are with the passengers and their families at this deeply distressing time," unquote. Expressing his anguish, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney stated on X, quote, "Devastated to learn of the crash of a London-bound Air India plane in Ahmedabad carrying 242 passengers, including 1 Canadian. My thoughts are with the loved ones of everyone on board," unquote. Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed deep condolences over the crash of the passenger aircraft and further stated, "Kindly convey the words of sincere sympathy and support to the families and near ones of the victims, as well as wishes for the speedy recovery to all those injured in the catastrophe." French President Emmanuel Macron extended his heartfelt thoughts to the victims of loved ones and to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Israeli Foreign Minister stated, quote, "Our hearts are with the Indian people following this terrible incident." But how did this particular Boeing Dreamliner flight turn into a nightmare? The top focus of the investigators is going to be Boeing 787's engine thrust, wing flaps, as well as landing gear, with the airline's maintenance regime also coming under scrutiny. Looking at various possible reasons for this crash, India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau is checking whether the plane's engine thrust or the wing flaps failed, and why the landing gear remained open after taking flight. What led to the control failure, and why experienced pilots couldn't save this flight. A lowered landing gear has drawn a lot of attention. It increases drag and fuel consumption while also reducing aircraft speed. A source revealed to Reuters that investigators will also look at whether there were any maintenance issues prior to the flight. A double engine failure on a commercial airliner is extremely rare. However, it has happened in the past. In 2009, a bird strike led to a double engine failure which caused the miraculous landing of a US Airways flight 1549 in the Houston River in New York. So were the flaps on this aircraft in the wrong position? Experts suggest that the aircraft was losing thrust from early in its flight, with radar data suggesting that the initial short climb eventually lost speed. Moreover, according to some interpretations, the video footage shows the plane's wing flaps, which are responsible for generating lift, were not extended to the proper position after takeoff. However, reports also suggest that an aircraft like the Dreamliner would not even take off unless the flaps are in the correct position. So were they correct before takeoff, and what happened then? So did the aircraft suffer a dual engine failure, or was it something worse? Was there fuel contamination which would affect and impact both engines simultaneously? And if that's the case, then who was in charge? The plane's fuel tank was reportedly near full due to its long flight to London, resulting in a massive fireball on impact and the loss of lives, even from a modest height and modest speed. Captain Hathi Singh, a former Air India official, was quoted in the media saying, "It's possible that a dual-engine flameout was the reason the landing gear could not be retracted," unquote. A dual-engine failure theory gained even more traction after the DGCA in its statement said that the pilots gave a mayday call seconds after takeoff, signaling that they had lost engine thrust. So should the Boeing Dreamliner fleet be grounded after this crash? Sources suggest that the Union government is still deliberating on grounding the Boeing Dreamliner 787 fleet. On one hand, it has a relatively impressive safety record. On the other, can such a risk be taken again? Talks are also ongoing between India and the United States agencies on whether to ground the fleet for a safety review of this American wide-body airliner. A source told NDTV, quote, "A call will be taken on the basis of the probe into the crash," unquote. So along with this consideration, Tata Group's Air India might also undergo strict scrutiny for safety review and maintenance procedures. Meanwhile, the Indian government has formed a high-powered committee to investigate the incident after the black box was recovered. But the report is only due in 3 months. But what do you believe? What led to the fatal Air India air crash? Leave a comment with your opinion, hit the like button and subscribe to Inconnect News.